once was someone said to me that my baby could die. I was told I'm going to have to do injections. I was told, you know, I could get really, really sick. Nobody said she could die. And she was 100% silent. And I will never, ever, ever forget how loud that was. 9 hours into labour, I knew something was wrong. And I said it to the midwife in the room. I don't know what it was. It was almost like a click, like something just felt scanned, and she said, you know, I'm really sorry, but we can't find a heartbeat. Your daughter's died. And everything stopped. I had to leave the baby. And I was just like, that's not going to happen right now. My body is in shutdown mode. And I'm like, how am I supposed to deliver a baby that's not alive? And I went to the GP. She was just like, look, let's just do a pregnancy test. And I'm like, no, what? And he's like, you're 10 weeks pregnant. And I'm like, right, okay. And he's like, but with everything that's happened, I think the best thing for you to do is to terminate this pregnancy. And I'm looking at my baby thinking, imagine if I'd have listened. Like, just imagine if I'd have actually listened to that advice from my colleagues in the NHS. They should have never told you to terminate this baby. You have every chance of carrying this baby to full term if we work quickly, and that we're going to get you to full term and we're going to deliver this baby safely. Standing at South Bank at 12 o'clock on this Sunday afternoon in May, and people just kept turning up. 72 people showed up that day, and we walked and we talked, and people were leaving and they were like, when's the next one?
Hello and welcome to the podcast Love, Life and Loss. Today I have the absolutely amazing Rachel joining us today. Would you please like to introduce yourself, please, Rachel?
Thanks for having me, firstly, Louisa. Hello, my name is Rachel. I am a bereaved mother and director of Ebony Bonds Bereavement Support. That's me.
Absolutely amazing. I can't wait to get into your story. So would you like to start your story from your beginning, whatever that looks like to you?
Yeah. Okay. So it's going to sound really naive, but I always say to people that I never, ever knew that babies died. And I got married and assumed that that's what happens. You get married and you have children because that's what everyone else was doing. And so that's exactly what I did. Got married, you know, had a couple of years of, you know, enjoying my marriage, and got pregnant and was completely over the moon with that. And it quickly dissipated. 18 weeks in, started to feel very, very unwell, and ended up going in to see my midwife and being told that I had protein in my urine, and that was a sign of preeclampsia. More tests, and determined that, yes, it was preeclampsia. And that kind of changed the scope of the pregnancy totally. I then was under consultant-led care, fetal medicine, really, really frequent scans, and determined that I had intrauterine growth restriction as well as preeclampsia. So I worked through the whole of the pregnancy, still with quite a lot of medical intervention, was told kind of what the prognosis could be, that I could be induced early, what preeclampsia is, and how kind of dangerous it can be for mother and baby. So, but part of me still didn't think it was a big deal. It was just sort of them monitoring me and I'm okay and I'll be okay. I progressively got more and more unwell and was eventually put on bed rest at 24 weeks. And yeah, my blood pressure was literally through the roof, and kind of feels like that period from bed rest to birth was a big blur, like a huge blur of not really doing anything, being quite petrified, but still thinking I just have to make it to, you know, a safe enough stage to deliver my baby. Eventually, that was not going to be the case. I ended up in hospital just after 28, and I think it was 28 and 4 when I went in, because I was so unwell. And I was really lucky because my friend at the time was a midwife, and is a midwife still. Sounds like she gave up the profession. She didn't. But yeah, she was explaining to me kind of what could happen and kind of being quite open with me. So I had some expectations, and they did make the decision to induce me. And the induction was really straightforward. I was given the pessary, and they induced me, and everything was, as far as I know, going well. 9 hours into labour, I knew something was wrong. And I said it to the midwife in the room. I was just like, something's happened. I don't know what it was. It was almost like a click, like something just felt like it clicked. And she was like, you're fine, you're fine. She's looking at the monitors. My baby's fine. And 20 minutes after that, I just said, something's happening. And she sort of lifted up the covers, and she was just like, bang, on the red button. I was bleeding out. I can't even tell you how many people came into the room. It was a blur. And then they all kind of disappeared. And there was a lady who I believe was an obstetrician, and she brought in a laptop. This is in 2012, so it's quite a long time ago. Brought in a laptop and started scanning me. And she's scanning me, and it's completely silent. And we're just standing there, me and my husband standing there. And I'm like, I know what's happened. Like I knew 20 minutes ago, but it was almost like they weren't on the same timeline as me. As it was like, I'm saying something's wrong. I know something's wrong. Anyway, she scanned and she said, you know, I'm really sorry, but we can't find a heartbeat. Your daughter's died. And I think everything stopped. Like I before that, I was contracting. I was in, you know, everything was going the way that I thought it was. And it kind of just stopped. Everything just stopped. Like my body kind of just decided to shut down. And I didn't understand what happened. It wasn't explained at the time what had happened. And I just remember calling my friend and saying, this is what's happened. And she said to me, listen to me. I need you to listen to what the doctors say. They're going to say what's best for you, and you kind of need to do that. I think she knew what they were going to ask me, which was that I had to deliver the baby. And I was just like, that's not going to happen right now. My body is in shutdown mode. It literally just stopped. And I'm like, how am I supposed to deliver a baby that's not alive? Like, how am I supposed to do that? That is a full, like, what? Like, can't you just give me, I was like, can't you just give me a C-section? They were just like, we could, but, you know, that could mean other health complications, and recovery is going to be worse. And so, yeah, eventually, after about another 3 hours, they put me on the drip to induce the contractions again. They asked me if I wanted an epidural. I took it. It failed. And I delivered my daughter at 8 p.m. on the 20th of December 2012. And she was 100% silent. And I will never, ever, ever forget how loud that was. It was just like, this is not how it's supposed to be. Like, it's not how it's supposed to be. I was really blessed to have an amazing midwife at that time. They had changed during the period of me losing Rayma, and then her being born. I remember her name was Yvonne. She was amazing. And she looked at me and she said to me, I'm going to get her dressed, and you can tell me if you want to spend some time with her, if you want to hold her. And I did all those things. And she took prints and photos and all of the things that you would have done if she was born alive, but none of it really sunk in at all. We were moved into a different room on the labour suite, hearing women labour, and hearing babies be born around us for probably about 8 hours, because the eyes did not shut. And eventually they were like, you can go home. And I attempted to get up and my legs wouldn't move. And they were like, what's happened? And they're like, touching my legs. Can I feel this? And I'm like, no, I can't feel this. Turns out the failed epidural had just kicked in and the whole of the bottom half of my body was still numb. So I couldn't go home. And so we were there for another, I would say at least 24 hours. Again, big blur. My milk came in. They told me they're sorry and bought me a tablet to stop it after the fact. So all of this was kind of happening. And then eventually we get to go home and I pick up the car seat and we walk back through the labour ward at Homerton Hospital, where all of these women are there with their bellies and their babies. And I got into the car and I just fell apart. And I was just like, none of this makes sense to me. I was told soon after that I had a placental abruption, which is really common for women with preeclampsia. The placenta is so weak that it comes away, and obviously it means that baby isn't getting oxygen. And that is how my daughter died, and it was 100% unpreventable. So I hear so many stories of, I guess, negligence and, poor care. And I'm lucky enough to say that wasn't my experience. And the bereavement midwife was really, really good. However, that made absolutely no difference. I went into a hole. I would say for easily 3 months. I remember bereavement midwife kept calling. She even came to the house. I didn't get out of bed. I remember family coming round. I remember people turning up. I remember the council cemetery from, I don't know what the City of London cemetery at the time, calling repeatedly, asking me when I was going to bury her. And me saying I'm not going to, because I'm not acknowledging that this has even happened. And eventually I had to get out of bed. And I did so in March. And we buried her and we had her funeral at City of London with a few family and friends. I think there must have been in total probably about 12 of us. And she was buried in the Memorial Gardens at City of London Academy, which is just one of the most beautiful places ever. It's just full of children, which is heartbreaking, but also really warming that she's not by herself. And then life continued around me. And I was just like, okay, so no one's gonna acknowledge the fact that my daughter, and everyone just carried on. Everyone just carried on living life. And I'm stuck in this moment of, what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to pretend it didn't happen? Am I supposed to go back to work? Am I supposed to start thinking about having another baby? Am I supposed to just live in this moment and just keep honoring her memory so that nobody forgets her? Like, what am I supposed to do? Nobody is here to tell me what to do. And I'm figuring it out by myself. And I mean, literally by myself. One of the most isolating experiences I've ever been through. Eventually, I opened the box that I took from the hospital that the bereavement midwife sent home with us. And there was a leaflet for SANS in there. And I was just like, having spoken to my husband, I was like, do we need to do this? And he's like, I'm not doing anything. So I'm like, look, I need something. I need to talk to someone. And I contacted SANS' helpline, and they said that there was a group at the Sure Start Centre, probably about 20 minutes from me. And I picked myself up and I went to that group. It was a Tuesday evening. And I walked into this Sure Start Centre at 7:00, and there were 12 women in a circle with chairs, 12 white women in a circle. And I walked in and they all looked at me and I was just like, yeah, this isn't for me, is it? But I had nowhere else to go. So I sat down and I didn't speak for the first group. I just remember being there and listening and thinking, hold on. This has happened to other people. This has happened to all of these people. And nobody told me that this was a possibility when I was pregnant. Like, that was so wild to me. Even in the situation of having preeclampsia, not once was someone said to me that my baby could die. I was told I was going to be on Clexate. I was told I'm going to have to do injections. I was told, I could get really, really sick. I was told my baby's really small. Pediatricians were in the room before I gave birth telling me how they're going to take my baby as soon as I give birth to her, because they need to take her because she's quite small, and there might be an issue with her organs, but it's fine, I'll get to see her. Nobody said she could die. Not one person said that to me. And so that's when the anger kicked in. The anger kicked in a big way, because I'm like, I didn't have to be blindsided by this. And I know it's a hard thing to tell somebody that these are the outcomes or this is what could happen, but I felt completely just knocked for 20. It wasn't even 6, it was 20. I was just like, I don't know how this could have happened. So the SANS group kind of brought me back to feeling less alone, I would say. I was able to talk about her, and they asked about her. Like, no one was asking about her. No one was asking me what she weighed, what her hair was like. Did she look like me? I'm like, no, she looked exactly like my mother-in-law. Like, she literally came out and I was just like, that's not my baby. That looks like I was like, she looked like my mother-in-law. She had the most beautifully straight hair that was stuck down to her head. And I was just like, I don't have straight hair in my family. Where's the straight hair come from? Like, nobody was asking me things. Her name, why I had given her my middle name, all of the things that I didn't feel like I was able to have conversations about, they were asking me. And it was a place where I felt really, really free to have those conversations. And I kept going to that group for a while, I would say 6 months. And then I returned to work. Worked for a really small company at the time, and they were really, really good, to be honest. I can't fault them at all. And then kind of pretended as if I also had to move on with life. So I'm doing the performative thing, still seemingly stuck in this moment. And the same friend, the midwife, was getting married in the summer in France. And we had obviously planned to go to the wedding, and Rayma would have been there had things have been different. But I was maid of honor. She was one of my closest friends, and off I went to this wedding. It was beautiful. And the night of the wedding, because it was a whole weekend affair, the night of the wedding, she called me and she was like, I need you to come up to the room because I need to, funny story, she's going to kill me. She needs to take the tracks out because they're really annoying her. She's like, I can't go to bed with the tracks in my hair. So I've gone to do my maid of honor duties, and I'm cutting the tracks out of her hair really finely. And she looked at me, she said, you look exhausted. And I'm like, I am. I just feel bad. But I've been on maid of honor duties for 3 days. So it's kind of catching up with me. She's like, no, you look really tired. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, we're going home tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. So I get home and really do feel exhausted. I went to the GP the following morning, and she was just like, look, let's just do a pregnancy test. And I'm like, no, because it ain't that. And she's like, it is that. And I'm like, what? And I'm on the pill. So I'm confused at this point, and she's like, look, you need to go straight down to the hospital, and you need to be scanned and find out what's happening. And I headed down to the hospital, to the early pregnancy unit. They scanned me. They said there was a heartbeat, but the consultant needs to come and see me. It was the same consultant that I had during my pregnancy with Rayma, and he came in and he sat down and he said, listen, you're 10 weeks pregnant. And I said, what? And he's like, you're 10 weeks pregnant. And I'm like, right, okay. And he's like, but with everything that's happened, I think the best thing for you to do is to terminate this pregnancy. So I was just like, what? And he's like, the placenta's formed. We haven't given you any kind of medical intervention in terms of what's happened. And I'm like, but why would I need medical intervention? So he's explained that the reason that I had preeclampsia and the reason for all the issues in the first pregnancy was that I have a blood disorder called antiphospholipid syndrome, which basically means that my blood is very thick. And they established that after they did some tests on Rayma's placenta, my placenta, and if I want to carry a baby to full term, then I will need to be on blood thinning injections from prior to conception. And so what's happened is I've got accidentally pregnant, the placenta's formed, and my baby has absolutely no chance of survival again. And I should terminate the pregnancy. Now, I'm at the hospital on my own at this point, so I'm not going to make this decision. And, you know, I'm not with my husband. So I've gone into work because that's what I was planning to do afterwards. And I've had this huge meeting, finance meeting, and my MD, after everyone's left, he's looked at me and he goes, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm pregnant. And he was like, congratulations. And I'm like, no, they've told me to terminate the pregnancy. So he said, look, do me a favor, just get a second opinion. We used HCA at the time, a healthcare provider. Contact them and ask them if you can see somebody privately and get a second opinion. And so I made that call probably about 12:30. And I ended up being put through to the Portland hospital, where a obstetrician asked me to come in at 2:40. And so I left work and I went down to the Portland hospital and I sat with an obstetrician called Mrs. Chakravarti. I remember her by name. And I sat and I spoke to her for 2.5 hours about everything that had happened, from being pregnant with Rayma to, you know, everything. And she was tapping away on the computer, and she left and said she needs to make some calls. And she said, just give her 20 minutes. She'd called. She'd come back and she sat in front of me. She said to me, I really want to apologise for my colleagues in the NHS. They should have never told you to terminate this baby. You have every chance of carrying this baby to full term if we work quickly. And that means today. Back then, you had choices. So she was also a consultant at the UCH. And she said, I want you to come to me. I want you to be under me. We're leaving the hospital that you were at, and you're gonna have this baby under me, not privately, through the NHS, and we're gonna get you to full term, and we're gonna deliver this baby safely. And that was it. I was on clexane injections every single day, twice a day, which at first didn't feel like a chore. But then when my belly started to grow, I did not acknowledge I was pregnant until literally, like, I could tell people at work and people around me could see I was physically pregnant, but I was just like, I'm not even talking about it because I don't know how this is going to go. So people were just kind of staring at me a lot. And then eventually I was like, right, I'm going to have to tell people I'm pregnant, which I did. And I remember going in to see Miss Chakravarti at 33 weeks. I was seeing her every 2 weeks. And I was 33 weeks and I was exhausted. And I sat in front of her and she said, we've reached the milestone that you said in the beginning that you wanted to reach safely without being on bed rest. I had preeclampsia again as well, by the way. Got that at 24 weeks in that pregnancy, but again, was managed and monitored really, really well this time. And so at 35 and 5, because we couldn't go beyond 36 weeks because of my placenta was kind of falling apart at that point again, I was induced. And there was I remember being in the pessary again, took effect really, really quickly. And I was labouring after about 6 hours. They moved me to the labour ward and I was expecting the same thing, just loads of people. And it was just this midwife, Phoebe. And she was like, I was like, where's everyone? And she's like, you're fine. Like, it's fine. I remember Mrs. Chakravarti saying to me, like, we can talk about your birthing plan. And I was like, yeah, just put me to sleep, wake me up when she's here. And she's like, we can't do that. And I was like, you can. And she's like, I can't do that. And I'm like, no, I'm not. She's like, you can elect for a C-section if you want. But I really want you to be able to know what your body's capable of. And I want you to be able to deliver this baby. And I said, I'm not going to be able to do it. Like, I can't physically get my head around being in that situation and laboring and not feeling like this is going to happen again. Like, you want me to contract, you want me to sit here, you want me to stay monitored, you want me to hear all that beeping again. And it's not, what if it ends in exactly the same way? But she was right. And 8 hours into labor, I really started contracting. And I remember saying to Phoebe, like, there's no one here. Like, where are the doctors? And she's just like, chill. My daughter was born at 8:38 p.m. and she cried. And I couldn't even hold her because I wasn't expecting that. I've never heard that. I'd never experienced that. And so I just collapsed on the bed. I just literally collapsed. I didn't even see her. I was just sobbing for a good 10 minutes. When I finally kind of got up, I turned around and she was having skin to skin with my husband. My mum was in the room also crying in the corner. And I looked at Phoebe and she said to me, you did it. And I'm like, yeah, it was just, I can't even put into words the relief. I can't put into words the joy. I can't put into words the reparation that had been done from the previous time I was in a room like that. Like, it was mind blowing for me. Eventually, I took her and she had the exact same skin tone as Rayma, but she had fine curls. Like this, I was like, she looked just like her sister, but fine curls. And they said, oh, one person has to stay with you. You can't have both your mum and your husband. So I sent my husband home because, I wanted my mum with me. And we went up to a ward, which was actually really quiet. And I just stared at her. I stared at her for 14 hours. And my mum kept saying to me, Rachel, go to sleep. And I'm like, I can't. She's alive. She's here and she's alive. And this is real. And I don't have to. I regretted that in the morning, I'll tell you, because, oh my gosh, was I tired. I'm just going to stare at her all night. I'm just going to be no. Oh my gosh. The next day I was like, I'm so tired. But yeah, we took her home and Amelie was named 6 days after that. And she's 11 years old now. And I think my switch in kind of feeling like this isn't right was the moment that they told me that she should be that I should terminate the pregnancy. And I'm looking at my baby thinking, imagine if I'd have listened. Like, just imagine if I'd have actually listened to that advice. And that put fuel in me. That was just coming up for 3 years after I'd lost Rayma. And I went back to Sands because I was struggling with life in terms of, would Amelie be here if Rayma was here? Would I have had... There were so many nuances, and I was adamant always from when I was growing up that I was going to be a girl mum. So I always, even at scans, when they would ask me, do you want to find out what it is? And I'm like, I know it's a girl, because I know it's going to be a girl. And I was right both times. And it was just kind of like both of them would have been here, and I was really, really struggling with that. And all the things that I wanted to do with Rayma, I now had an opportunity to do with Ebony, but felt really bad about the fact that that was my reality. So I was able to talk freely about that and had some private therapy as well, which was really helpful, and kind of started to get on with life, I guess. And then I kind of just thought, surely this is happening to like so many different people, and no one, and I mean no one, is talking about it. Mm-hmm. A few people came to me after I'd lost Raymond and kind of said, you know, they'd lost a baby, they'd had a miscarriage, they had been sick or had preeclampsia, but nobody was having a conversation about baby loss. And I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to talk about baby loss. Like, I'm just going to talk about it. Like, it's going to make loads of people uncomfortable because it makes people uncomfortable now. Like, but I'm going to talk about it. And so I went to SANS and I kind of said, look, what can I do to kind of get involved? And they were like, well, there's this program we have called Befriending, where you can help other bereaved parents in groups, the same group you went to, but also, you know, peer support groups and online support groups. And so I started the Befriended training course in 2019, and then had to take a pause because I went for a role at work, which was really demanding, came back to it, and then COVID hit. And I was like, right, okay, cool. We'll just take a break. Post-COVID, soon as everything opened up, I went straight back and I was like, I need to do this. I need to do this. And they were like, well, the group that you were going to befriend with no longer exists. It's an online group now because of COVID, but you can still do your training and kind of take part. So I finished my training and I started befriending. At the same time, we were contacted by Patrice, who works at SANS who was working at SANS as the Black Outreach Coordinator. And she was saying that she wants to put a group together to kind of establish where SANS aren't reaching the Black community. And she called it the Round Table Group. So we just sit round a table talking about our support from SANS, how that helped us and what SANS can do better. Patrice is an amazing individual because she took everything that we said at that table back to the powers that be. And we thought that was going to mean that things were going to change. So I'm like, not only am I befriending, I am changing things. And 12 months in, nothing changed. So we were just kind of like, we sat with Patrice again, and Patrice is like, so I mentioned it, I said it, but we're still kind of, and there were quite a few of us around that table, and sometimes the table would change because we met every other month. There were new parents that would come in and some parents that would come once. But I remember sitting around that table and Gina and Peter were there, and Gina said, we'll just do it ourselves. And I was like, that's a good idea. But then I'm like, I'm in a group of people and I'm just like, I know what I'm like. I'm quite confident, I'm quite outspoken, and I'm like, getting into a group of people I don't know to do something that means so much to me is really, really risky. But around that table, 5 of us were like, let's do it. And Patrice was like, go, 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 go. Like, you've got my support kind of thing. And we said, let's just do an event where we can just get Black families together and talk about our babies. And that was it. Like, let's create a support event. And so I kind of explained how difficult it was walking into that SANS group all those years ago to see everyone sitting in a circle like it was an AA meeting, and how intimidating it is to sit down and try and talk. So I'm like, let's not do that. Let's do something where people can just walk in and feel like they fit in at any time and leave at any time. And so the walk and talk was born. It was Gina's idea. She was like, let's just walk and talk and we'll figure it out. And we got a date and we got a venue and we put something on Instagram and Facebook, and we thought, we'll get, 10, 12 parents come down and walk with us, and we're going to walk from this Caribbean restaurant all the way over to Waterloo and walk back, and we'll have something to eat, because let's be real, we're Black, we need to eat. So there we are, standing at South Bank at 12 o'clock on this Sunday afternoon in May, and people just kept turning up. And I'm looking at Gina, and I'm looking at Shay, and I'm looking at Temi, and I'm looking at Peter, and I'm like, they're still coming. 72 people.
Oh, wow.
Showed up that day, and we walked and we talked, and we came back to the restaurant and we talked some more and we ate, and people were leaving and they were like, when's the next one? When are we doing this again? There were families in memorial t-shirts that had seen a post on Instagram and come with their granddaughter on a t-shirt. Like, we've never heard of anything like this before. We just wanted to come. There were people that were coming with sisters, cousins, football shirts with their babies' names on the back. We were just like, what is going on? We just thought we were just gonna provide a little bit of a space. And we sat at the table when everybody had left. And I said, we're gonna have to do this. Like, this is needed. Like, today was really different, and it felt like we had to roll with that energy and create that space. And Gina had said, this is something that I've spoken about before. I've spoken with Shay before. I've spoken with Peter before. Providing support is what we need. And then I thought, that's it, because there wasn't any support for me when I lost Rayma. I sought it out. And when I sought it out, it took a lot for me to sit down in that circle. And I know so many people wouldn't have stayed. They wouldn't have come back. They wouldn't have even gone. Because the idea of it is this space safe for me? Are people going to understand my story? And I sat in that circle and I spoke about church, and people were looking at me like I was alien. People were looking at me like, what? Someone turned up to your house with a Dutch pot full of food and you let them into your... And I'm like, yeah, but that's... And I'm having to explain on top of explaining. And I hadn't realized how draining that was. To be able to have a space like we did that day for people to talk and say, because you know what mums are like. You know what? So my brother, and you're like, I'm not shocked by this. I'm not shocked by that. I get it. And I understand. And da-da-da-da-da. And what do you mean this happened? And it's just because there's a cultural understanding that doesn't need to be explained when we are with each other. And that includes baby loss. So Ebony Bonds was born on the 24th of May, 2024. And we all decided that we wanted to provide support. That was the main thing. We want to provide support. And so we registered the company and we started doing that. We created a space where we had events, monthly online meets, and a WhatsApp peer support group and a one-to-one peer support group, where people could just say, I'm having a bad day. This is what's happening. We celebrate our babies' birthdays. We discuss topics. We talk about the highs and lows of the journeys that we have. And it felt good. It felt like we had finally built something that was a space. And then we were like feeling really content. This was like January, February, like, just great, isn't it? Look at us supporting people. And then more people and more people. And we're getting DMs and we're getting emails and we're getting messages, and they're all the same. My baby died and they shouldn't have. My baby died and this happened and it shouldn't have. And the key denominator is these are Black families. And we're welcoming them and we're supporting them. But we're like, this isn't good. this isn't, yeah, we're here to support people, but why is there so many people? And that's when the conversation between me and Gina happened about, we can't just do support. We've got to do advocacy. This can't keep happening, because all that's going to happen is Ebony Bonds is going to be a huge organisation that supports Black women whose babies continue to die. When actually we should be a support organisation for Black families whose babies have unfortunately died. And the volume in which this is happening means something isn't right, and we need to do something about it. And so it changed. We went back to the bigger charities, Tommy's and Sands, to ask them, what's happening? Like, why are so many? That's when you get into the space and you see maternity organisations like the Motherhood Group and 5 Times More and Mama Academy talking about Black women, Black women, Black women. And I'm like, hold on, so what's happening? We're just talking and nothing's happening. Like, we're talking about it. And still, the numbers are not getting any. Embrace comes out. Numbers are not getting any. In fact, they're worse than they were last year, because actually Black women are having less babies than white women. So is this a true reflection? Is this happening? And that's when, I guess, a fire kind of lit in us, and we were just like, we need to be involved. And as you can hear, my forceful nature, I just start talking. And I say, I don't understand why we're having these conversations without us. We went back to Sands in a really, really big way and kind of said, you're not doing what we know you're capable of doing for Black families in terms of support, but also in terms of research, advocacy, and action. And they listened. And they said that they want us to be a voice. And we started getting invited to meetings and conversations and parliamentary events. I became part of the Inequalities in Baby Loss campaigns team at Sands, working with them on the projects that they currently have to reduce inequalities. And as usual, I'm the loudest person around the table. You've been in a room with me. Why? That's me. And eventually I think it became really apparent that I wasn't going to let it drop. And so now we're in a situation where we're working with hospital trusts, Lewisham and Queens mainly. Lewisham's local to me, Queens is local to Gina, to look at bereavement care and look at what is happening and look at how these numbers can be reduced. So those active conversations continue. We forced our way into the APPG, and were asked to deliver a presentation for Black Baby Loss Awareness Week. And that definitely was the momentum. Loads of the other grassroots organisations that were in that room heard firmly how we feel. And there were connections that were made, and then now we're talking, and now we're partnering, and now we're having conversations, and what else can we get Ebony Bonds involved in? And so we're officially a year and 2 months deep, accounts filed, and, you know, plans for next year to extend our reach, not just for support in London and Essex, but to keep advocating on behalf of Black families whose babies didn't need to die. Some of the stories that I've heard in the last 12 months have been horrific. And they're not my story, as I just told you. My story was heartbreaking, but unavoidable. But to know that there are so many families who should have their babies, but the system decided that they were not worthy enough to be looked after properly or worthy enough to be given a chance, breaks my heart every single time. And I don't want to hear those stories anymore. And that is what drives me and Gina and Peter and Temi to keep doing what we're doing, because we don't want to have these conversations as frequently as we're having them. And so here we are. here we are in honor of all of our babies. You know, Gina and Peter lost Dante in 22, and Temi lost Grace in 21, and we won't stop. We've made a collective bargaining agreement that we are not going to stop until the outcomes and these statistics and what we're doing is markedly better. And so I say to people all the time, just get used to see my face.
You're beautiful.
I'm here for the long haul. And yeah, I guess that's my story.
Well, can I just applaud you because you're amazing, and to go through what you've gone through, and like you said, to still get out of bed, you know, that's a challenge on its own, but then to take it as far as you've taken it, and still gonna continue to take it as well, like this is just the beginning. I can see that this is just the start for you guys. Like you're on a mission to change the world, and I'm here for it.
Yeah. And we've met so many amazing people, yourself included. We've met so many amazing people who feel exactly the same. We've been to so many events. We've been part of so many different initiatives. And I do genuinely believe that if we work together and we're so loud and unapologetic about the fact that this should not be happening to us in the way that it is, those changes are going to come. And I believe we're starting to see them. I believe we're starting to see them. And I know people can say, oh, we've been doing this for 10 years and you've just calm. I hear all of that. But I'm feeling that things are shifting and Black families are being listened to. There's so much work to be done NHS-wise. It's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to change people's opinions and the absolute embedded racism that we are facing on a daily basis. But I do feel like the shift is happening. And accountability is key. And I strongly believe that we're getting to a place where that is going to be taken more seriously.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, like you said, we do have a long way to go, but it does feel like for once people are listening, but hearing, not just listening, hearing.
Agree.
And we have a voice. We've been given a voice. So, you know, some people might call it a token, whatever, but who cares? Let's run with it. Like, why the spotlight is there, let's take a full advantage of it and let's run with it. And that's why I love you guys so much, because you are doing that 110%. And you're not just doing it for you, and it's nowhere near to do with anything to do with the glory, because like I say, you're bringing other people in as well. If you can create a space for somebody else who aligns with you, you're doing that. Like, and not everybody can do that and is willing to do that, but you are, because it's all about the mission.
It's not about us. It's not about anything else apart from making sure that we're making a difference, and this isn't what we're having to do. Ebony Bonds exists, and it's a great thing to have, and we're so grateful that we're able to support so many women. But how great would it be if we didn't get two families coming to us a week? How great would it be if we didn't have to add somebody to our peer support group all the time because there's another death that didn't have to happen? For us, that's all it's about, reducing those statistics and letting people know that we're here, and getting people to understand that our fight is completely different. And we're not asking for special treatment. We're not asking for special acknowledgement. We're asking to be treated and handled and cared for in exactly the same way as our white counterparts. And until that happens, you are not going to stop hearing my voice.
Yeah, are you just asking for equity? You know, there's nothing too much to ask for. It's nothing bizarre, you know, just, you know, to have the same treatment and to have the same chance at life as everybody else, because that's what throws me, is that babies of color are at a disadvantage from the womb. Like I said, I say this all the time. I've done my research. We're at a disadvantage in every aspect of life. But from when you're at a disadvantage from the womb, like, what the hell? How is that even a thing? Why should that even be a thing? Like, even England as well.
Right? Like,
yeah.
It's a big thing for us as well is just listening. So many of the stories that we've heard, and if there are any medical professionals or anyone in maternity listening to this podcast, I just listen to Black women, listen to them, listen to women who are pregnant, who are telling you that they don't feel something is right. Your experience is not the be all and end all. Yes, you've been an obstetrician for 15 years. Yes, you've been a midwife for 8 years. But if somebody tells you that something is wrong, they do not feel right, listen to them. Give them the space and the time to explain that and do the right thing in investigating so you can eliminate any chances of harm to that mother or to that baby. And that is the crux of it. Because if so many of the women that we've got supporting at the moment were listened to, their babies would be here. That is their babies would be here. And we've been in situations, I've been in situations where I've been into hospital and said, this is what's happening. And in the cubicle next to me, because, you know, curtains are not soundproof, there is a white woman being treated completely differently to me.
Mm.
And I'm sitting here thinking, I just said the same thing.
Yeah.
I said that, and I'm just like, what is happening? Like,
yeah,
that is our reality.
yeah.
That is our reality, and listening is the key to breaking down so many of those barriers, but also to saving our babies. Because if you listen to us,
I always say, mother knows best. You
oh
can't,
my,
you know, you trust your instincts, and the medical professionals, you should trust the mother's instincts as well, because, and even if they turn out to be wrong, still investigate, still just try and make sure that you know.
not our prerogative, right?
Yeah, it's really sad and it's really frustrating that we're in this situation, but I'm so, so grateful for people like you. Genuinely am. Like, you definitely would have changed lives and saved lives. You know, it's not just about offering, like you said, it's not just about offering the support, it's about changing the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
You're in these spaces, whether it's by force or not. I don't believe it's by force. You're destined to be there. You need to be
Thank
there.
you.
Like, and like I said, you're creating space for anybody else that is willing to be there as well, including myself. Like, I'm eternally grateful because you haven't even told it. You're involved in so many more other things as well that are gonna
We are.
have a huge stamp on the UK as a whole. Do you know what I mean? It's not just individuals that you're
No.
helping now, it's society that you're helping. So, and like I say, I'm just so grateful for people like you and Gina and the rest of your team. I haven't actually met the rest of your team, Peter as well.
No.
I am so grateful for the things that you do, it's born from something as simple as going for a walk, and talking. But that signifies and represents so much that people not of color won't
Mm.
understand, because it's you created that space, like you said, that so many people turned up because they've never seen anything like that before. Like, that wasn't even that long ago.
No.
You know, it's been the statistics and the disparities has been on the news and the TV for consistently, really, for at least the last 5 years that I've seen anyway. But I say this walk and talk wasn't even that long ago, and so we still didn't have that space. Like you said, there's been a lot of people talking about what's going wrong, what the issues are, but there's not actually many people talking about, okay, now what action are we going to take to rectify this? How are we going to change this? How are we going to stop this from happening? And the
Yeah.
bits that we can't stop, how are we going to make sure that there's appropriate support and care for people in place when they need it?
Mm. 100%. And the walk and talk is our staple. It's our annual event, and we're doing it again for Black Baby Loss Awareness Week next year. And we're hoping that we can do that in a variety of cities across the UK. It's one of the things that we get a lot of people contacting us from different areas that we're not able to kind of reach at the moment, which is again part of the plan for next year in broadening our support across the UK. But it's such a simple idea that had such a huge impact, and connected so many bereaved parents with like-minded bereaved parents. And when you're in certain cities across the UK where you are even more of a minority, you know, we take it for, we sit here saying, you know, we're 4% of the country, it's not really a big deal. But when you're in London, sometimes doesn't feel like that. when you're in, you know, the southeast, it doesn't feel like that. But when you navigate that up to the deep south in you know, Devon and Cornwall, or all the way up to the north, you know, when we're talking about Blackpool and Lancashire, you're even more isolated. And if there isn't a chance for you to meet Black families who have been through the same thing as you, connect with them, that's all we want. That is all we want, for you to have a safe space to say, as I said, some mornings it's, I'm not doing well today. Or actually, my son's birthday is coming up. How did you guys celebrate your first? What did you guys do? Because I don't know what to do. You know, those conversations that are necessary, that you can't have unless it's somebody who knows what you're going through. That's the network of support that we're trying to create at Ebony Bonds.
And it makes a huge difference. Like, I haven't come across anybody who hasn't said that speaking to somebody who's got that lived experience makes all the difference. Because I always say, if you know, you know.
Mm,
I hope you never get to know.
exactly.
If you know, you know. And it is it's a unique grief. It really is. And I say I've experienced multiple different types of grief, but there's nothing like baby loss. And so few get it, you know. And even then you look for experiences similar to yourself. And I know there'll be people listening and thinking, well, why does it matter what color of the skin the person is that you're talking to if they've experienced baby loss, they've experienced baby loss. But it does, because there's loads of layers involved with baby loss, and that's what people don't always recognize or understand. And even for people who've experienced baby loss, if they haven't experienced certain challenges themselves, they still don't necessarily recognize it or understand it. If you know that, you know, you're going to go into hospital and there's a twice as likely chance that your baby's going to die, how are you meant to deal with that?
Yeah.
And people they don't have to deal with that. It's not an issue for them.
No.
The walk and talk, it's, you know, there's the trauma that's involved with baby loss as well. You know, like you said, like you explained earlier, you know, listening to all those sounds, the beeping, and is it going to be the same experience when you're in the hospital and in the labor suite? You know, you was traumatized the first time round, so that then impacted your second labor. You
Massively.
didn't enjoy it as much as you would have liked to have it. And I imagine from the way you were speaking, it's like you held it all right until the very end, and that's when you just let it out, and that's when you just broke. And it's about to have those conversations. And even like I said, when you're doing your walk, so I'm a huge believer in movement. Like, movement is such a great healer. And so
Mm.
taking somebody on a walk and talking, that's movement. So
Mhm.
without them even realizing it, they're already helping themselves release some of that trauma by they're addressing the trauma, and with the movement on top of that, then they're helping themselves release that even.
Yeah.
And then they're finding a community, and then somebody that they don't have to, like I said, they don't have to explain this, and this just for them to get this one point, do you know? Uh,
No?
they get it straight away. So they've got that shared experience as well. You know, because there's certain things that every community is different. It doesn't matter necessarily the color of your skin, your heritage, you know, but everyone's different. You know, West Indians, we do things differently to how somebody from an African country would
Yeah.
do. So we have our different ways of dealing with things and our different cultures. You know, if I explain to somebody when my son died, well, I was in lockdown, so I didn't have this 100% the same experience, but you know, normally your house is bombarded. When somebody dies in our culture, your house is bombarded with people and food and drink and everything. And until the funeral, at least till the nine night,
Hmm.
people, what's a nine night? You know, do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
then you might have to explain that before you even get to your story.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It,
there, you know what I found really interesting is because it was Yvonne, my midwife that I told you about when Rain was born, she was a Nigerian woman. And when she bathed Rayma and dressed her, I it didn't even cross my mind that that's what she was doing, because that's exactly what we would have done, right? And it wasn't until I was in the group, the SANS group, when I was like, and then my midwife, you know, took the baby and she bathed. She did what? She bathed her, and I'm like, yeah, and dressed her, and then explaining the cultural expectations that we have as Black people when our babies are born. Oh, we don't do this and we don't do that, but we do. So that's, nobody flinches in the community when I say, yeah, and then Yvonne took the baby and bathed her. I can say that in my SANS group now, and people would be like, what? Like, explain why why would you do that? All right. So basically, like, you know, cleanliness is next to God. No, we can go back and forth about it, but it's just like, do I want to do this right now? Like, do I want to have a conversation? I'm talking about my baby. Like, I'm talking about my baby.
Yeah.
A conversation about why she was baked. But it's so many, and even when it comes to those memory boxes, one of the things that we're so passionate about is having things that make sense to us in those boxes, because there's so many things that are in those boxes and none of them, like, what is this, like, there's, why is my child's head uncovered, like, why is there not a hat, and like, so there's no, I'm just supposed to, oh, because my baby's not here, I'm not supposed to treat them as I would if my baby was alive. Like, there are things that I would do at this point with my baby that I should be able to do as a Black woman. And we're also having those conversations. How can we make those boxes more culturally appropriate? You know, we're talking about, like, even things like creaming our skin, wrapping our hair, the things that we have to do in hospital that we're not expecting. Some parents are going into hospital unexpectedly. They're not expecting to give birth to their babies. They're not expecting to lose their babies. And they go in and they're absolutely unprepared for it. And there's absolutely nothing for them. And we're thinking, you then get a box with loads of leaflets in it and absolutely nothing that you can use as a Black family that makes sense to you. How can we make that more culturally appropriate so that Black families feel included and cared for properly when their baby has died? Simple things, really, really simple things. So there's work to be done, and we're on it.
And I love it. Like I say, it's the small things that make all the difference, the details, you know, and like I say, creating that space, just that on its own, creating the space. And I love the fight. I absolutely love the fight. You know, you've gone to SANS, it's not good enough. So let's just
No, it's not.
No.
No.
And you
and I'm definitely the mouth. I always say it. Gina's the vision. She has the biggest aspirations for Ebony Bonds. And every time she tells me something, I'm like, Gina, that's wild. That is a huge idea. And then it happens. And I'm like, I don't know how she does this. But I'm the person that's kind of doing the operations. I'm pushing the train forward while she's thinking of these huge ideas and huge plans. And it's working because the two of us together seem to be really complementing each other and going, right, what do you think we need? I think we need to do this. And I'm like, well, I think that's a bit crazy to be talking about us getting involved in, you know, a government investigation. Like, don't you think that's yeah, there's an investigation. Did you hear? Yeah, let's get involved. Gee, how do we do that? Like, what do you mean? Like, yeah. Have you heard this? Yeah, no, but it's a bit much, isn't it? Like Parliament. Yeah, let's do it. And then I'm like, okay, it's my job to go over and figure out what it is that we need to do. And here we are in a place, like I said, nearly 18 months after an idea, doing some really huge things, working with some of the most influential people in this baby loss space. And we're so grateful, honestly, for every single person who has said, actually, I think this might be a good thing for Ebony Bonds. Actually, let me send this email to Ebony Bonds. Let me see if Ebony Bonds would be interested in this. And that's not just from Black organisations. I'm talking about from every grassroots organisation, Love Leos, Aching Arms. They're going, hold on, this actually feels a bit more like something that would be relevant for Ebony Bonds, you know? And so the more we're in your face, the more you're going to think of us when those things come up. And I say to Gina, just keep talking. That's all we do. Just keep talking. Yeah, we're grateful, very grateful.
Yeah, and like I say that's down to your determination and your hard work, because you said you're putting yourself in these spaces. You're making sure people know who you are and what you're capable of. So that's why they're coming to you. They see it, and they know they can't do it themselves, but they know that you can. So that's why they're coming to you, and then they're giving you that space as well, which is great. And I can long may it live. Keep coming to Ebony Bonds, because they are amazing and they are going to change the world. So, and like I said, anything that I can do to support as well, I'm here for it, because like I said, I think you guys are amazing, and I hope you go to give yourself the credit you deserve as well, because you made this happen. Nobody else did it for you. You made this happen, and you've worked so hard. I mean, you've shown me that, you know, we can be in spaces we can open these doors, and we don't actually have to wait for other people to open them for us either all the time.
We
We
don't.
do it for ourselves, and you have done. And like I say, I'm in awe. I think you're amazing. I think it's great, and I can't
You.
wait to see what's next.
I'm telling you, loads, loads. No, next year's going to be a big year, and we're really excited about being able to kind of branch the reach and do the work. So yeah, just stay tuned, really, and yeah, keep an eye on what we're doing, and most importantly, if you know anybody um, who needs support following the loss of a baby, please direct them to us. It's what we do.
How do you guys support yourselves?
So we support each other. So we've all had bereavement training. Myself with Sands. Gina's about to do a second course, and we learn about clinical supervision. December is Rayma's birthday, and we have a we have a group understanding that there are times that we're going to be down, and that's the beauty of being in a group. The beauty of not doing this by yourself is that there is always somebody to pick up the slack if there is tough. And I assumed that being in Ebony Bonds would mean, I'd handle my own grief so much better. And last December I flatlined, and I called Gina and I said I can't, and she said just take it out, and she held it. She held everything together. She kept the social media going. She made all the phone calls. She did all the peer support groups. She was interactive in the group until I was ready to kind of come back, kind of forgetting that, hold on, I've also lost my child while I'm supporting everybody else. And it is easy to forget. And the same thing, we have a really open relationship to say, I don't want to do this. This is too much for me. And given the time and space. And as I said, it's the beauty of having a group and not having to kind of do it by yourself. And that's why I'm such a fan of the collective voice, because it just means that if I'm unable to make something, I'm unable to go to a meeting, I can say, Louisa, this is happening. I'm in Dubai. I need you to go, because somebody needs to be in that room. And I think it's so important that we have that mindset, because we're not always going to be available. We're not always going to be equipped sometimes. And it's real. It is really real. But we have access to some of the hospital services with the hospital trust that we're working with, but also with SANS as well. And we support each other, and we keep the lines of communication open. And if there is anything that kind of rocks us, then yeah, it's kind of like Avengers Assemble. You take some time and we'll take over. So that's kind of how it's been working at the moment.
Oh, that sounds so lovely. That's good. I'm glad
Yeah.
I did ask that question, because it's so important to look after yourself. It's the work we do is amazing work, but it's heavy work.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure you have time for yourself. So if you could give anybody, with hindsight now, being your friend, if you could give anybody any advice, what would it be? The most important thing you'd say?
I think there is a silence surrounding risk when you're pregnant as a Black woman. Somehow it feels as if we shouldn't tell pregnant women what the risks are, for fear of scaring them, making them anxious during pregnancy. And I understand all of that. But I feel that the conversation has to be open and honest about the considerations and the things that, as Black women, we are more susceptible to. We are more able, our pregnancies are not the same. And if those conversations are had, you are more likely as a Black woman to experience this. So what I want you to do is look out for. And you come and you talk to us if this is what you're experiencing during your pregnancy. I believe prevention is 100% better than cure after the horse is bolted. And if Black women understood our health, as Black women, we have a innate nature of keeping calm and carrying on. We're known apparently for having some kind of extraordinary superpower and high threshold of pain. It's not. It's a cultural way of us suppressing what we're feeling because there's so much other stuff going around and going on for us. If we were told when we're pregnant that having a headache for more than 2 days is a sign that you are not okay, if you have swelling, if you feel unwell, if you're having trouble going to Do not suppress those things. They are all signs that something isn't right. Come in. We feel welcomed to come and see medical professionals. I would say that would be my advice for Black women and families, to listen to their bodies, pay attention to their health, and do not be afraid to seek help when you feel unwell. I think that would prevent a multitude of baby deaths if we did that.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. And don't let them make you feel like you're being a hypochondriac, or you're being silly, you're overreacting. Because it's always better to be safe than sorry.
Comes down
Hope
there.
you are overreacting, and it is a misunderstanding. That's the best case scenario.
And if when you went in, Louisa, because you felt something wasn't right, and the nurse, the doctor, the midwife that you saw was like, it's fine, and you did the right thing, and if this happens again, you come back, we've created a whole different culture. Because you leave the hospital thinking, oh, now I've just wasted their time. Oh, you're back again. Oh, look at you. Oh, come
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
This
And
time.
make jokes as well about it sometimes and things like that. Like, yeah.
If you were reassured at that point that yes, it is a concern, what you were concerned about is valid, and if it happens again, you come back, because that's what we're here for. You create a different culture for Black women to seek that help and to get that second opinion, which is preventing any of those issues escalating and our babies being unwell. So that would be my one key piece of advice, knowing that of the 1,746 babies that died last year, 50% of those deaths were preventable.
Mm. Yeah. And look, your living testimony, or your daughter's living testimony, that you don't always have to listen to them first time. How do you imagine, your daughter wouldn't be here.
I always say £240 saved my daughter's life. And that, and I mean, that's not accessible for everybody.
No, no.
I went through Work's private healthcare and they paid for that appointment. And that is what turned things around. That's not accessible to everybody. The people that we trust, the people that we're told to trust, not always the case.
No,
not always. And that's the sad reality that we have.
And it's so hard, because you then find that, because progress takes so long, so you then find in the meantime you then have to put even more strain on yourself and become an expert and do your own research and advocate for yourself, and that just adds more pressure, and it can affect the outcomes as well, just that alone. So yeah, this is why the work that you do, not just supporting families, but behind the scenes as well, why it's so important, because you are having these difficult conversations. For some people, they're difficult anyway. For me and you, they're not difficult. But for some people, they're difficult. They don't want to hear these things, and they don't always want to take it on board. But it's just simple stuff. Just listen. Just listen and validate people. Like I said, even if it turns out that they have got it wrong, that's best case scenario.
Everything is fine, and you did the right thing. That's it. You were concerned. You came for help.
Yeah. No, but we'll get there eventually.
I know we will. And I'm as I said, we're not going anywhere until we do.
No. So, and anybody, if they need to get in contact with you or want to access your services or find out what your next event is, how do they do that?
So the easiest way is ebonybonds.org.uk, which is our website. We are hella active on Instagram, and we're Ebony Bonds Support. And when you go to our page, you'll see that we have a 24-hour access text number. You can email us anytime. We'll respond within 4 hours. And that goes for press inquiries, but also mainly support. So we're available around the clock. And yeah, that's what we're here for. If you need us, whenever you need us.
Even that, I think, is amazing that you're available around the clock, because so many other services aren't. So
I genuinely didn't think it was going to be a thing. But when we got an email on New Year's Eve, 2024 at 11:10, and I replied to it straight away, that mum was shocked. When they're just like, I wasn't expecting that. And I'm like, that's what we're here for. And it works, because I think a lot of us, again, as Black women, our downtime is not during 9 to 5. So to be able to get into bed and be like, actually, I do want to talk about this. And actually, I would like to send a message, or I would like to have a quick chat with somebody about this. And we're available. on rotation. It's not always the same one of us, but that's how it works. But you can come and have that conversation. And we're proud of that. We're really, really proud of that. And it's one of the things that we think is most important, because grief doesn't happen 9 to 5. So
No,
time.
You know, as we know, people of color are the least likely to access support. So when they're in that moment and they're asking for help, it's so important to jump on it there and then, because if you miss that boat, you could miss that boat forever. You know, they're not coming back.
100% agree. Agreed.
But just one more time.
Thank you.
Guys,
Thank you for having me. Honestly, you're amazing as well, Louisa. That's why we've connected in such a way. And yeah, we're not going to stop. We're just not going to stop. And I know exactly, you're exactly the same as me. So yeah, it's always good to connect. Yeah, and keep that fight going.
Definitely. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.